Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 36 Cancel, and this is Coco the Wise Cat. Players, I have a question for you. Do you suffer from chronic lack of GF? Do your parents nag you about never bringing home a girl for the holidays? Do you crave service-level affection and validation from yourself and your peers, but shy away from the depth and commitment of pursuing an actual relationship? Well, why not go to your local Blockbuster and rent a girlfriend? Or alternatively to compensatory dating, you could actually get some real value for your dollar and get some cards for the upcoming Weiss 4 set based on the show Rent a Girlfriend. For those of you who didn't know, which I'm totally sure is all of you weebs out there, in Japan, the practice of renting a girlfriend for days, hours, weeks, or even months is quite real. Now, I'll leave just how far the idea can go up to your imagination or your wallet, but it's a big enough thing in popular culture that it spawned quite a popular manga and anime on the subject. I'll fully admit that I haven't done much research on the show, but apparently the manga has gone completely off the rails. To my understanding, MC-kun, some sad dude with no redeeming qualities, enlists the services of a girl offering compensatory dating, and of course they catch feelings for each other and proceed to dance around the fact. And then other girls also get involved somehow and also catch feelings and don't make any hard commitments. This culminates in a weird romantic drama where all the girls who caught feelings compete to show who totally doesn't, but also totally does have real feelings, and also having a weird contest as to who is and who really isn't the real girlfriend. I asked people who watched Rent a Girlfriend, and they said that was basically correct, so I'm going with that. But hey, to each their own, you should like what you like, King. But being that there seem to be memes inside the manga's own fanbase about how cursed the fans are for enjoying it, I'm not going to go out and tell you to subscribe to Crunchyroll and shotgun the whole series. Hey though, here's the thing about Weiss 4s, you don't actually have to be super attached to the series or source material to enjoy the cards. After all, I think most of SAO is a steaming pile of garbage, but I still own 6 decks because they're incredibly fun to play. And let's face it, the girls in Rent a Girlfriend, much like Hiruto's Angels, are pretty damn cute, and no one could be faulted for wanting to play them in their deck. What's more, this set is dropping February 11th, just in time for Valentine's Day, meaning that you don't have to spend it alone again. So without further ado, let's talk about how these girls translate into a Weiss 4's cards. And as always with set showcases about stuff that isn't officially translated yet, the names and card text might not be exact based on the TL we have available, but overall the effects and message should be the same. So Rent a Girlfriend is obviously on the Weiss or white side of Weiss 4s and features a very pastel, bright, and adorable design. The art actually reminds me a lot of Nisekoi. The characters on the cards are mostly, of course, the main heroines, with very few side characters like MC featured. With 4 colors, you have Chizuru in red and green, Ruka in green and blue, Sumi also in red and green, and Mami in green and yellow. However, while you definitely can build a Mami waifu deck with yellow and green, red, green, and blue carry most of the key climax combos and driving mechanics in the set, always revolving around Chizuru, Ruka, or Sumi. That said, each color offers solid tech choices, leading many to consider playing 3 or even 4 color decks. Now, as for collecting, the set is pretty straightforward. The set has 100 cards and 36 parallel foils. 4 of those are SPs, and 4 are SSPs, as well as 1 trial deck SP. And keep in mind, this release will follow Bushiroad's new packaging formula, meaning 9 cards per pack, 16 packs per box, and 18 boxes per case. The packs will also come in these flat boxes that JP Weiss was packed in, and from here on in, Bushiroad will officially retire the tall boxes of English Weiss with their old numbers. Now all that taken care of, let's move on to the mechanics and take a basic look at what the set offers. As we can see from this graphic, while the set's a bit more focused with strategy, it's quite good at what it does. While there are only 2 real finishing styles to choose from and 1 defensive combo, there's a lot of good support for them, including events, which are integral to most any of the strategies you might run. This set also features the Accelerate mechanic, which has gotten rather uncommon in newer releases. However, the cards in Rent a Girlfriend work a bit differently than the old Accelerate that we know, instead putting a character from your waiting room at the bottom of your clock, versus before where you put the top card of your deck into your clock. This definitely makes the mechanic less punishing. The set also has a single standby climax, which combos with a level 2 Sumi. And while there are some okay standby targets, there's not much in the set that capitalizes on it super well, and most choose not to go in that direction. Other than that, the set does feature conveniences such as free fresh, anti-damage counters if you want them, precision finishers, and very strong level 1 combos. So now that we know a bit more about the set, we'll go into the standout cards, as always, starting at 0 and working our way up to 3. And at 0, a great place to open is the trial deck level 0 Chizuru. 1500, and on play, reveal the top card of your deck, add it to hand if it's a character, and then ditch a card. and also on play, ditch a character to draw a card. This is a common profile in Weiss 4s which I lovingly call Cowgirl from the Goblin Slayer PR card. It's good pretty much any time in the game, opening and close, and it fits well into most any deck as a staple. Another very solid 0 to touch on is Mommy Ex-Girlfriend. 1k power, and on play, pay 1 and clock yourself to search for a level 1 or lower character. Then, when she attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a climax, you can return a character on your opponent's stage to their hand. Basically, she reads if you trigger a climax, you can treat it as a wind trigger in addition to any other abilities it has, even wind. A very compelling and solid Riki that again fits well into most any deck. Speaking of useful tools that are deck agnostic, we have Ruka Sarashina. 2k power, and she gets plus 1k if you have 2 or more other characters. When she's reversed, you can top check 3, add a character, and pitch a card. This is once more a common and strong profile because it delivers both power and hand filtering in one card. In addition, Chizuru has one of the best climax stitch salvagers in English. At base 1500, during your opponent's turn, she gets plus 1500 power and plus 1 level. And on play, you can pitch a climax to salvage a character. Extremely solid utility. Now there are some other good level 0 choices, like the Queen Cut Ruka or the spot decking hand filtering Ruka, but let's talk back row, and we all know what 0 has in the back row, Brainstormers, and Rag has some pretty solid choices. Now being the set has a strong and popular toolkit in red centered around 8 gate, it only makes sense that we have a gate-centered, tap-self-salvaging Brainstormer Chizuru that lets you add plus 1 soul to a character when you play said gates. This is not to be confused with the similar profile that lets you add plus 1 soul when you trigger a gate. This doesn't do that. If you want to go the yellow route, you have this Mommy Brainstormer, which has an act ability to pay 1 and put any level 0 character in your opponent's center stage into the waiting room, and her Brainstorm ability is draw 2, pitch 1 on a tap self. Pretty compelling actually. Not your cup of tea though? Fear not, we have another Chizuru Brainstormer in green. At the start of your climax phase, you get to give any character plus 1k for free, but she's a tap 2 salvage Brainstormer, so maybe not the first choice. But don't worry, we have others. Sumi, also in red, has a very generic when you score reverse on a character, you get to give another character plus 500 ability, and she is also a tap self salvaging Brainstormer. And finally, we have Ruka with a tap self-searching Brainstormer that feeds into the Accelerate package. Once per turn, when you accelerate, you can draw 1 and ditch 1. So needless to say, no matter who you want to play or what strategy or color combination you choose, you have your pick of pretty decent Brainstormers. But while level 0 has good stuff, level 1 is packed full of great tools, so let's get right in there with some combos. Outside of the dedicated waifu decks, people generally choose one of these two combos, either red Chizuru or blue Ruka. The red combo, Chizuru Mizuhara, is base 4k and gets plus 3k during your turn, so that's pretty good. Her combo is on a gate, and on reverse you can salvage a character from your waiting room. Further, if you pitch a character, you can also salvage an event called Is That Okay?, which we'll take a look at later. Either way, she hits 8k on your turn with a climax, which is very respectable for a reverse combo, especially one that can double filter. The other combo people lean towards is I'm an Adult Ruka. At 4500, she gets plus 1k if you have 2 or more other characters. Her combo is on a pants, and on attack, you pitch a card, then top check 4 and add up to 2 characters. So she's a lot smaller, but a bit bigger on your opponent's turn, and of course offers on attack advantage instead of on reverse. Obviously, her combo isn't tied to an event, so she's a bit more deck agnostic than the red Chizuru, but again, either one make for popular combos. Now these are what people sometimes consider the main combos, but there are others. Mommy has a basic 5k level 1 combo where on attack you top check 4, add a character. Pretty basic. From the trial deck, Ruka also has a pretty generic on reverse salvage combo, and Sumi has a level 1 combo that lets you stock charge. But finally, the set does have a standby combo. Sumi Morning Routine is a 2-1 that so long as you have Sumi's red Brainstormer in your level zone, gets -1 level in your hand. She's 7k, and when she reverses a battle opponent and you have a standby climax in your zone, you can pay 1 and kill the climax. If you do, top check 4 and choose up to 4 characters, or events called Embarrassed Maiden, add them to hand, then choose a character and it gets plus 3k power for the turn. Huh, that's a weird one. Really high potential for blowout plays and a lot of hand advantage, but with the experience requirement and a toolkit that really limits you into playing only Sumi, it's a tad limited. Also, I just realized this isn't a level 1. Oh well, you're supposed to play it like it is, so spare me. Back to level 1 for a hot second though, Rent-A-Girlfriend has a ton of level 1 tech and hand filtering from Sumis and Chizurus that let you pay a cost and search your deck for stuff outside climax combos, and different change combos from one card to another over the course of the turn cycle. There's also a level 1 Mami that straight up lets you pay 1 and pitch 1 to swap its battle opponent with any other level 1 or lower character. Nah, I don't think I want to fight your 2-2, I'd rather fight your Brainstormer. Seems good. Finally, there's also a 1-0 Ruka counter that's pretty interesting. It's a 1-0 1k counter, but it also has that accelerate ability. If you accelerate, again by putting a character from your waiting room to the bottom of your clock, you top check 4, add a character, and then give a character in battle another plus 1k. So basically, it's a 1-0 2k punch that's also a torch if you accelerate. Kind of. Yeah, it's actually really cool IMO, especially with all the other accelerate synergy in Ruka's kit. And before we move on, Ruka also has a 1-1 event that clocks you, deals 79, yes you heard that right, 79 damage to your opponent, and then lets you search your deck for 2 copies of the level 1 Ruka combo, play them to the stage, and they get plus 1k power and plus 1 soul. So yeah, you can play that if you want. But let's move to level 2. Now level 2 in Rent-A-Girlfriend has several interesting cards and a few cool characters, one that we outlined already. But in addition to that one, at level 2, Rent-A-Girlfriend has several level assisters. Now many of these are keyworded to only help their respective waifus and only fit into their specific kits. For example, Sumi's level assister only helps Sumi's, Chizuru's only helps Chizuru, etc. But at level 2, you also have some key events for the set that are integral to some strategies. For starters, let's have a look at Is That Okay?, the event that the Chizuru combo can salvage. It's a 2-0 event, and when you play it, if your memory has 2 or less cards, you can put it into your memory. Then at the start of your next main phase, if it's in your memory, you can put it into your waiting room. If you do, choose a card called Chizuru, Everyone's Girlfriend, in your hand and put it anywhere on the stage, and it gets plus 1k for the turn. Since that happens to be Chizuru's finisher, the point is not only to play her early, but also for free. This can lead to turn after turn of your finishing combo, starting at level 2. But more on that when we actually talk about what it does. For now, we'll stick to level 2 and talk about Sumi's event. Sumi's 2-1 event is called Embarrassed Maiden, and it can't be played if you don't have a character called Sumi. When you play it, choose a character called Sumi Sakurasawa in your hand, put it on the stage, and then it can't be chosen by your opponent's effects, and they can't be backed up against until the end of your opponent's next turn. Which is really good because Sumi Sakurasawa is a defensive anti-soul combo. Again, this is a strategy to make this start happening at level 2, but more on that card later. There's yet another event I want to go over, Monthly Number 1. It's a 2-3 counter that gives one of your characters plus 1500 power and lets you choose one of your opponent's characters and stops them from doing damage that turn. The only downside is that you have to have a full stage to use it. Now before we move on to level 3, there's one more backup I want to mention. Chizuru Filling Your Heart is a 2-1 free fresh backup, adding further utility to the set in general as free fresh backups are staples in most any decks in sets that offer them. But all this said and done, let's move to the level 3 game. And it makes sense to open with yet another event, because every girl has at least one. Mami's happens to be level 3, and it's a 3-1 event called Shall We End It? When you play it, you search your deck for a character with Mami in the name, then put a card called Mami Nanami from your hand to the stage, and it gets plus 3k for the turn. Surprise, it's an event that plays your finisher. But now that we're at 3, we can just move directly into what it does. Mami Nanami is an on-play healer, and when you attack with her, you can pitch a card to trigger twice. Her climax combo is on a choice, and at the end of this card's attack, you can pay 2 and pitch a card. If you do, look at up to 3 cards in the top of your opponent's deck, choose any number of them, put them into the waiting room, and put the rest back in any order. Now this may seem familiar, because it's the Mocha effect, and the intent is clearly to fish out climaxes, remove them, and thus negate cancels. Is that a double negative? Anyway, you'll notice 2 things are different here. 1, this effect digs 3 cards deep, not 2, thus making it 150% more effective than Mocha, or maybe it's exponential. Someone better at stats than I am can answer that. However, you'll also notice that this effect happens at the end of the attack instead of the start, thus happening after damage, thus making it a lot worse than Mocha. So best case scenario, you get 2 attacks where you fished out climaxes, not 3. However, 3 cards deep is exactly how much damage you will be swinging for with her climax and base 2 soul. She also pays for her own effect by triggering twice if you pitch a card. So yeah, this is different than Mocha and arguably worse in many ways, but arguably more powerful in others. Either way, this Mami and her respective event are an interesting finishing strategy. Another route you can take is the defensive option. We talked about the 2-1 event Embarrassed Maiden being able to play out Sumi Sakurasawa, so let's have a look at her. On play, she heals, and at base 8500, she gets plus 3k if you have that Sumi Brainstormer in your level zone. Her climax combo is that on attack, she gets the following ability until the end of your opponent's next turn. At the start of their attack phase, choose up to 2 of your opponent's characters, and they get -1 soul. So the idea is that you have 2 or 3 of these out at level 2, and start handing out -4 to -6 soul each attack phase as long as you can keep the combo up, which is a bar, so it shouldn't be too tough. A weakness that these defensive combos usually suffer from is their general vulnerability to things that can get rid of them before the anti-soul kicks in, like anti-change, bounce effects, or characters that just have more power. However, the Embarrassed Maiden event mitigates a lot of these problems, and Sumi's 2-1 assister, combined with their base 11k5 power with experience, makes them a very effective defensive combo if you're going to play one. If this is a playstyle that appeals to you, this one's a winner. Now we have 2 more girls in this show, so naturally there are 2 more endgame strats. But before we get into those, I want to talk about some utility and secondary finishers in RAG. One vital thing to most any deck is a good early play, and Chizuru is very much here in that regard. Early play 4 or more, base 9k and gets plus 1k if you have 2 or more other characters, which of course you do, and on play she's a discard stock healer. Nothing if not generic, but very solid for the role she plays. Ruka also has an early play, but hers plays a very different role. Ruka, how about ... comes out early if you have 2 or less climaxes in your waiting room. On play, you draw, discard, and then bounce an opponent's character. And at the start of your opponent's attack phase, you can accelerate with a character from your waiting room, and then choose one of your opponent's characters to get -2 soul for the turn. So at the price of 1 damage, refuse 2 damage. Interesting utility, and of course it synergizes with the Accelerate package. Lots of defensive potential in this set. Now, in addition to some early plays, the set also has some pretty decent secondary finishers. For instance, super high-spec Sumi. When you play her, you draw 2 and pitch 1, and then when she attacks, if you have 2 or more other characters with Sumi in the name, you can pitch 2 cards. If you do, Icy Tail for 4, or in common terms, put the bottom 4 cards of your opponent's deck into their waiting room, and then deal X damage where X is climaxes. Then she gets plus 2k for the turn. It's a free Icy Tail for 4. Pretty good, but the Sumi requirement does make it a bit taxing to run in more generalized builds. In Sumi Waifu though, straight cash. And also Sumi, we have a PR card Sumi that gives all your characters plus 1500 if she's in the front row, and lets you pay 1 and deck kick an opponent on reverse. A must-have for any standby package. Now it's time to talk about the 2 other finishers in the set. To do that, however, we actually need to talk about 4 characters. That's because the 2 other combos in the set do that thing where there's actually 2 different characters that both have a climax combo, but the first one, when you play a climax, changes into the other. Now generally, I'm not a fan of this. This is really an attempt to balance a card by not putting too many good effects on one, thus making you coordinate and run 2 cards, but I find that these are generally not even as good as some other cards when you put the 2 halves together. It's worth mentioning that you don't have to play the first card, and can just use the finisher. However, to me, it feels like you're not getting the full card. I do like packages like this where both cards have ongoing utility, like the Darkness Vanier combo, but this isn't one of those times. Anyway, let's talk about Ruka. The first card in her package is Ruka, I'm the Girlfriend. She heals. And then when you play the climax, you send her to the waiting room and switch her out with a Say Ah Ruka, also from your waiting room. She has only 1 ability, and it's her climax combo. At the end of this card's attack, you can pay 2. If you do, choose one of the following things to happen. Either 1, restand the card, or 2, choose 3 characters in your waiting room, return them to your hand, and then free fresh. Kind of a weird set of abilities to have on a finisher, but it's kind of cool. But let's move on to the Chizuru package. The first part of it is You're Good Chizuru. On play, top check 3 and add 1. Then of course, on climax play, trash it and replace it with Everyone's Girlfriend Chizuru. Now this is the card that gets played from the TOO event, and the actual finisher. When it's played from hand or by the effect of the other Chizuru, it heals. And the climax combo is this. On attack, pay 1, ditch 1, and then burn for 2. Then this card gets the following ability until the end of your opponent's next turn. When this card is front attacked, you may return it back to your hand. Now do you kind of see how this is supposed to work? You can play it early with the event at level 2, and then bounce it on the backswing, only to play it again and heal again next turn. Burning for 2 for a pay 1 ditch 1 is also a very solid combo, especially on a finisher with so much extra utility. You can also elect to play it without the You're Good Chizuru or without the event. No matter how you slice it, it's a very solid card, and a great way to wrap up the set showcase. So Rent-A-Girlfriend has a lot to it. There are plenty of ways to build it too, be they focused around a particular girl, focused around various event combos, or just generic good cards deck. It all kind of works. So this Valentine's Day, why just pay for your date's dinner when you can pay for your date and her dinner? Or better yet, why date at all when we have perfectly good shiny 2D cardboard waifus? Happy Valentine's Day, you weebs. Love and peace.